And welcome, my friends, to the next episode here of the Red Delta Project podcast. Today is a bonus episode here. I'm back with my friend Richard Monoson of DC. He is been, if you haven't caught the first episode that we did, a competitive what is it, figure bodybuilder? What men's physique? What is it?
Figures for the ladies, Matt.
Right.
It's men's natural bodybuilding, and I also compete in the physique division, which is the board shorts. But I'm going to focus primarily on bodybuilding this year.
Excellent, excellent. So now, Richard, remind us, you are in what division, what age category?
I am 65 years old, and I fall into a category. It's called the Ultra Masters.
Right. Yes. And Richard has been using a plethora of styles of training over the years, of course, as we all do, using a lot of isometrics over the past several cycles, competition cycles. And he dropped bombs galore about what he was doing and how he was prepping. So I wanted to invite him here again to catch us up on his successes, some of the latest lessons he has learned, and to cover some more bases that we didn't get in that first episode. So I'm going to shut up now. Richard, welcome back once again, Red Delta Project podcast. Good to see you, my friend.
Matt, great to be back. Great to be back. And as I mentioned to you previously, thank you very much for your introduction and being the portal of entry for me into the field of isometrics.
You're more than welcome. And it's been inspiring to watch your success as of late. You've been doing quite a bit in the competition circuits. What have you been achieving as of late?
Well, I competed last year, and I'm actually getting ready for something fairly soon. And I enjoy competing. And one of the things with doing it in the natural organizations is you can do it more often, and you do it in a very healthy and safe manner. And it reflects your lifestyle as well as what you practice. And it's been great. So I won a few titles last year. I competed in the Central Cal. I won the Grandmasters, which is age 50 to 59. And I won the Ultra Masters, 60 to 69. I competed in Team USA, very international top level competition. I won the Grandmasters, second in the Ultra Masters, and the World Cup last year, which was in November. Won the Grandmasters and second in the Ultra Masters. So I'm ready to go get them this year.
Wow. Now, one of the things that really interests me here, Richard, is I've always kind of looked at competition is very different from fitness, the way most people practice it. But one of the things that competition of any sort, whether it's athletic competition or physique competition, is that you're really taking things to much more of an extreme level of what the body is capable of adapting to, which is very impressive. But the cost of that on mind, body, and lifestyle is usually pretty darn high. And that's why a lot of times people will only last so long or be able to do it in their younger years. Yet you're mentioning about how you can just keep going, and it's actually being able to do something that you're doing long term, and it's improving your health and your lifestyle and stuff, which is
Yes,
definitely not the norm in that world. Am I right?
you're absolutely correct. And but Matt, when you're driven by passion, it's amazing what you can get done. And I have found with some of the more seasoned competitors, this is a lifestyle. It's something that people who have done their whole lives, and they have a great emphasis on and focus on healthful living practices. And, of course, our bodies change, but we're very adaptive organisms, and you find a way to change as well. And what the isometrics have done for me, it has opened up a whole new world of being able to continue to adapt, improve, and continue doing the passion of my sport at an intense level, very severely minimizing the risk of injury, which is a game changer.
That's a common theme that people come to. It's crazy because a lot of times I get a lot of attention in the isometric space from folks who have been beat up from years of dynamic training, particularly with heavy external loads as opposed to like calisthenics training. And they're beat up, they're burned out, they're at the end of their rope, and they discover calisthenics later. And time after time, myself included, people will say, "Oh, I wish I knew this back in the day
Oh,
because I wouldn't have
yes.
gone through as many injuries and the burnout and the joint issues and the nervous system fatigue and all these other things." It's like it's almost as if strength training, as we've all referred to it, is kind of a fountain of youth,
Mhm.
but it does have the ability to take life away if it's not practiced very well. And isometric seems to just give, give, give. And the cost of it is so incredibly small that even later in life and with extreme levels of competition, like what you're subjecting yourself to, the cost is still easily affordable.
Matt, very much so. And I wouldn't trade a thing. You know, I've had 8 orthopedic surgeries, 3 rotator cuffs, 4 knees, and 1 elbow. And I forgot what other body part, but I'm sure I could just throw a dart and hit. But that's what led me, absent that physical distress and limited capacity of those dynamic, very intense, heavyweight training injuries. I don't know if I ever would have found isometrics. And necessity was the mother of invention and exploration. And I know I needed to do something because I love the physical culture lifestyle. But regular weight training and trying to compete, it became an endurance competition. How much pain can one endure? Training was very defensive. And I didn't have that wonderful psychological benefit after a good weight workout because it's the capacity is limited. I spend more time fearful about being in the orthopedics office than I am focused on training. And since I found the isometrics, it is unbelievable the level of intensity that you can put forth, knowing that you have such a minimal risk of injury. And there are so many benefits, you know, to continue squatting 505, that knee cartilage is going to tear, ligaments are going to strain. You know, it's too much stress on the body. But the isometrics, it opens up. You can continue getting better and better, growing and evolving. And it's really is miraculous. I wish I knew about it earlier, but it wasn't going to happen until I crawled and found my way and got your book, which has been the foundation of my training program.
Fantastic. Now, what have you evolved with these things? Like last time I talked to you was several years ago. How has your training evolved and changed? Because inevitably it obviously does. What have you modified or what have you learned of new lessons on how to amplify and do things better, at least for you, over the past several years?
You know, Matt, one of the things that I learned is, you know, you really need to experience being under that tension of an isometric to really teach you. Your body will give you so much feedback. And what happens, time under tension definitely focuses your attention. When you're training properly, you're not thinking about compiling a grocery list or what you have to do later. I mean, your world is riveted on those on that body part that you're working. And what I found is that to continue to improve, you have to progressively overload and you get used to certain movements. You never get comfortable. When you're pushing, it doesn't matter if you've done it 100 times. When you're pushing intensely, those thighs, chest, shoulders are going to be smoking when you're stimulating them properly and you're mentally engaged. So you never get comfortable doing it. But what's beautiful is just changing a few angles, a few exercises makes such an incredible difference. Um, and the improvements continue. And it's a way to keep things to increase the intensity. And it does. It's a new overload to the body. I've also learned that you can get so much done in a very short period of time. You don't have to spend 4 hours in the gym. You can, and I tell my patients this, in 10 to 15 minutes, you can get an amazing workout where there are so many benefits beyond just looking good, muscular strength. It helps with the blood pressure, mentally. The endorphins are incredible. And, it helps reduce pain. It's been all good. And if a pharmaceutical company came up with a solution where they had a pill that does all these wonderful benefits with no side effects, it would be a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. And something as simple as Isometrics has provided that.
It's kind of crazy how isometrics is such a niche form of exercise, because exercise and fitness is a multi-billion dollar industry,
Mhm.
and home fitness in particular is a niche of that. So when we talk about isometrics, it's such a narrow niched thing, and yet you're talking about the benefits as if it's this big conglomerate of pharmaceutical kind of thing that would just change society as we know it.
It's a beautiful thing where there's such a tremendous benefit and such a minimal cost or risk
Yep.
to physical improvement, and knowing as you get older that you don't have to continue trying to bang away at the things you did when you were 22. There's still ways to improve, and there are still ways to thoroughly enjoy your training and to be fully engaged with it. And it's great learning new things and discovering. And the more times that you apply or practice, I don't know how this works, but you just keep learning. You just keep learning new things. And that time under tension, the feedback you get from your body, you get all these ideas, these epiphanies that you try, and it's endless. It's not like there's 10 exercises and you do it. There are so many ways to do things.
So, what kind of exercises are you putting into your routine? Walk us through a typical workout for you here, Rich, because I know things are moving and adjusting and stuff. But what does a typical routine look like for you in getting ready for all these things?
They're moving. Really are moving. And when I leave to go to the gym in the morning, I really don't know what I'm going to be doing as far as, but I typically get there before the gym opens. And one of my favorite exercises are belt squat isometrics from a very deep position. And you're sitting there, rock back on your feet, and you're pushing up. And so I get there a half hour early. And I pretty much, I mean, I can almost leave by the time the gym opens. I'm pretty tanked after that when you extend. So I will do 1 minute of sensory isometrics where it's about a 50% effort, really feeling what I want to be training. I feel those quadriceps. I put the back in that lordotic position and I push from my heels and really feel the muscles engage. Then I do 6 sets of 30-second isometrics, and they're not 100%. I would say they're somewhere in the 85 range. And I do that for 30 seconds, rest for 30, then do my second set. And I'll tell you, those rest sets, man, that second hand never moves so fast. And then when you're doing them, but and what I imagine, this is one of the main things about this program, is you have to be, when you're really focused, and I just envision what the judges are looking at, the muscle group I'm training, I'm envisioning what I'm trying to show the judges when I'm on stage. So those are for the squats. I'll do like a one leg sort of RDL, Romanian deadlift in a lunge position. So I got a rope, the World Isofit trainer or the forearm forklift, have it under the foot. I'm pressing down with my foot into the floor, but I'm also pulling up with my back. So I'm really so I'm pushing and pulling at the same time. When I get into the gym and I go to the squat rack, I have never done anything that pre-warms me up, engages, activates the muscles like the isometrics. So I can go right into squatting without having to do that dynamic warm up and stretching. I used to spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes just warming something up. And after that isometric session, there's no pulls, grabs, that ground glass feeling that's in the joint. It is just so prepared and ready to go. And then you can feel the difference between the dynamic and the isometric, because it does feel good to move. But the beautiful thing is I don't have to worry about moving 405 anymore. You put 185 on the squat rack, you do those slow, pause at the bottom, come up. It's amazing. And the pre-activation with the isometrics are so complementary. But what's happened is over time, now the isometrics have become the greater preponderance of the training. I'm doing probably 70% isometric, 30% isotonic dynamic. So I break it the same way as a regular training routine. Like I do chest try together. I train back the next day, then it's shoulder, bicep. And then on the fourth day, it's legs, and I do abdominals just about every day.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's echoing very much as some of the Arthur Jones isometric style routines that I'd read about in like the Dragon Door Ultimate Isometrics manual, where he talked about how he would have his athletes train 5, 6 workouts in a row isometric, and then one day of dynamic.
Yes.
And so it was about the same ratio, where it was about 70, 80% isometric, 20, 30% dynamic, because they do complement each other so very well. It's interesting that you're kind of finding the same ratio on your own that Arthur Jones was using. I was gonna say centuries ago. That's not decades ago. And he was big time a pioneer in that sort of thing.
Well, centuries ago, I probably grew up with that. So, but yeah, Matt, it's really amazing how you just, mine is very instinctive. I don't follow any system or program. I don't really keep metrics or have like plates that measure how much force you're exerting. To me, I listen to what the body says, and another thing that I love doing too and I wanted to ask you something too, Matt, but I love doing these pulse contractions, when you're underneath and you're pressing into an isometric, and then you do those short, rapid pulse movements. That's another way of overload or adding another level of intensity that I have found very beneficial. Mm-hmm. And I also like to load a bar up to put weight on it and also press up into the pins. So, you have the 45-pound bar and maybe a 35-pound plate, which I'll really press it to a 45 sometimes. But when you're pressing up and you still have that eccentric stress on you as well, it's endless. The creativity that you can come up with when you're doing it. And the main factor is just listen to what your body's telling you. The feedback you get is invaluable. And you could read all the books that explain the techniques, and it's great to have a foundation to start with, but you have to get your own experience. And once you delve in, you get into it, you the creativity is endless. It's amazing what can be done.
I couldn't agree more. The thing that I've learned is that we've got so much information, external information, if you will, with the internet and social media and stuff, and it's growing exponentially over time. And that stuff is great, but it's almost a crime how our fitness culture encourages us to ignore or sometimes even fight the internal information of our experience. And that's the stuff that's really immediate and true feedback that's going on. And the more we fight that stuff and the more we ignore it, then we're literally like saying, oh yeah, I don't pay attention. I don't learn any of the information on the internet, or I don't watch any videos or listen to coaches at all. I just do this one thing. It's crazy that we're ignoring that. But when we are more in tune with that, that's the stuff that's going to guide you in the direction you individually as a person need to be going into.
Man, absolutely. And it's great that I love listening to some of the experts because there's always something to be learned. And somebody will teach you something or say something that will strike a chord or stimulate you. Like you'll get an idea. You can listen to an hour and a half of stuff, and one sentence sends the light bulb off that you can't wait to run and try. And, people who are beginning, they need some type of guidelines, but, to say like 10 reps for 6 sets, your tricep doesn't know a repetition, 1, 3, all it knows is tension, and it's learning how to apply that tension and tuning into it. And really meant, we're connecting the nervous system and the muscle system together. And one of the main problems that I've experienced, and I see a lot of probably my gym goers, is, when they're doing training, to me, it looks like mindless repetitions. They're like on autopilot. They're sitting, they're popping out reps, strong guys, 315 on the incline, but there's no substitute for that. But, if you're not mindful, you could slow it down and think about what you're doing. And, and then I can keep doing my slow stuff while they're recovering from a pec tear and come into the gym with the brace on. And, so I was guilty of that. I was training and not really focused on it. It was sort of just feeling the movement from start to finish without all that wonderful stuff inside. And that's why, that time under tension increases your attention and focus. You get to know yourself. It's not just this external activity that you're doing because the magazine says you need to do this for an hour and 15, these many reps, run. Your body gives you the best feedback, and really acutely tuning that is the best gift you could ever give to yourself.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things that I think we get lost in a lot of the minutia and the small details, the influences that aren't really that important. We get run around and paralysis by analysis. And I get questions sometimes from folks when they're asking me different perspectives on things. And so often I just look at it, it's like, it probably doesn't matter one way or the other. And if it does matter, it's probably going to matter in the way that your body and your experience is going to tell you. And so the only way to know is to do it and listen to your body. But you're not going to figure it out by trying to go endlessly through research studies on the internet. Because if you can't get a good piece of information that gives you clarity, more is not going to help you. It's just going to make things more muddy. But if you've got a clear direction from your feedback saying, oh, that certainly did something, that was very impactful, then there you go.
And these are things that we have to discover, because I never knew anything about this. I came across this website on Facebook, which was Isometric as alternative fitness. That's how I found your book. They've since changed the acronym. And, there are a lot of old seasoned veterans who've been practicing isometrics, calisthenics, physical culture for many years. And there's so much to be learned from them. And they also have like a file section about all the old practitioners. And, I always do learn something or get stimulated with ideas. But, you're absolutely right with the influencers. Yes, they're there to make money. And, I don't know, maybe most people aren't into it like I am. They just want to do their cursory exercises. But, to excel as an athlete and to be able to do something where you can better your performance without pushing that envelope of severe injury, to me, that's gold. It doesn't get any better than that. and it crosses so many different barriers too. I just got back into practicing as a chiropractor after a 15-year hiatus in real estate. I'm so glad to be back. But my patients are dramatically benefiting from this. I see these untrained, injured people who are doing 7 minutes of isometrics, and the way things are dynamically changing. And now I'm thinking, why didn't I do this 100 years ago? But it's been a gift, and this gift has opened up so many other doors. It's just been wonderful. And it's so incredible that you can work out with a long towel or a nylon strap in a phone booth and have an amazing workout.
It is true. It takes much less as far as resources and time. And it's one of the biggest reasons why I think that in so many cases that isometrics, I wholeheartedly believe is one of the forms of strength training that most people should be doing. It's some degree. It's not, in my opinion, like this niche thing. Like this should be a standard practice of strength and conditioning, regardless of your goals, regardless of your training experience,
Mhm.
regardless of what you're doing. It is so fundamentally basic. It's just time and tension on basic fundamental movement patterns that I keep thinking, this is what most people should be doing. And yet there are so many perception barriers and emotional barriers within our fitness culture that people just, they don't do it. And they're really exchanging, they're not getting the small uh, cost to benefit ratio. Like some people, they'll even say like, "Oh, should I do it? Should I benefit from it?" What do you think? I'm like, even if you had two exercises that you did like for a warm up, like you did with your squats and stuff, the cost of doing it is so incredibly low that you just need any benefit at all, and it's going to be worth it. It's not like we're asking for this really long, complicated, resource intensive habit that had better pay off big in order to be worth it. The cost is so low that if it works at all, it's going to be something that is worth practicing.
Matt, and I too, people just don't know. I mean, I've been going to the gym for 48 plus years. I
Mhm.
had no idea what an isometric was until the past few years, until I happened to stumble upon it. But we're all athletes in life. We all have to carry the 4 grocery bags and close the trunk and hold and walk up that flight of stairs. Everybody can benefit from it. And it takes such a minimal amount of time to harden them for their normal activities of daily living. So for the general population, they're incredible as well. I treat a lot of personal injury, automobile related cases. And, people generally don't have a lot of gym experience. They've traumatized their soft tissue structures, their structural integrity and biomechanics have been compromised. We're not meant to get hit by thousands of pounds of metal at 40 miles an hour. And once we get out of that acute phase or that subacute phase, I start everybody in an isometric program. And it's incredible for restoring muscular strength, breaking up scar tissue, restoring proper biomechanics, balancing stuff out. But getting stronger can never hurt you in any situation. So the addition of this extra strength, stability, and durability, there's no downside to that.
Yeah. And I've always liked isometrics because the technical requirement of it is so low as well. Like I suck as an athlete in so many ways. I'm the furthest thing from a natural athlete in coordination and stuff. And I think a lot of people avoid exercise and strength training because they feel like I'm not good at anything. It's like you don't have to be. The great thing about isometrics is that you can be the most uncoordinated, unathletic person, you don't know anything about exercise, you don't know anything about programming, you just grab onto some straps, you do a couple of basic techniques, and it's going to work. And that's what's great about it. It works. It's just going to work. It's almost foolproof.
Matt, I got a baseball scholarship to Seton Hall University, and I was a good athlete. That doesn't help me at all when I'm squeezing underneath. But what you mentioned about skill level, you had a podcast on the Red Delta one time talking about you don't need any skill level to do this. And using that same squat, with the squat belt, you still have to maintain a little bit of balance, when you rock on your feet till you get a good comfortable or a position. I went onto the leg press and I pressed up against the pins where you're sitting in the chair, and this movement requires no skill because there's no rocking, no balance, and it enables me to push that thing with everything I got. And it is the most intense feeling that it's incredible when you go all out as opposed to 85% for a longer duration. It feels like you almost feel the metal bend, when you're pressing into it.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
the feed, and you're pressing and pressing, and it's incredible the way that shaking starts. But that one particular movement requires no skill at all. Like a standing shoulder press against the pin isometrics, you're crossing a lot of joints, the ankle, knee, hip, and sometimes I feel a little oscillation or wobble, so I have to lock in and maintain all the other joints to stabilize what I'm working on. But that particular exercise really eliminates crossing all that joints, and it's indescribable. And I just love it. You have to experience it to really get the full magnitude of it, but it's amazing.
That's always the challenge, though, is that so many things in life, especially when it comes to fitness and lifting, is that we're basing our perception on it off of past history of other things. And you can't understand it without experience. As I
That's
always
right.
say, an opinion that's not based on personal experience is just a guess. And everybody, it seems, loves to make guesses about this sort of thing. I did it myself. I even
Mhm.
wrote Dragon Door. I wrote Paul Wade when they announced that they were coming out with their stuff, and I was like, I don't know about this. And they're like, just give it a try, just give it a shot. And like you, I just used a towel or a bed sheet and stuff, and immediately I was like, oh wow, this is nothing like what I thought it was. This is entirely, completely different. And then when I came out with reviews for some things, like the ISO chain before it became the ISO Max, I made a YouTube video and comments like crazy. Oh, it's a fad, it's a gimmick, it's da da da. Like, you people can't know because I'm like literally one of the first people in the country to get one of these.
Mhm.
Like, I know you don't have one of these, so you
Right.
haven't used it. And your opinion without any experience with it is just a guess.
Well,
And that's fine to
that's
have your opinions by all means, but know that it is woefully short of validity when there's no experience behind it.
Matt, that's the social media world we live
Yeah.
in, and some incredibly preposterous stuff takes place on there. And yeah, you just, and people tend to be a little bit negative sometimes, but there is still so much valuable information. And, people like to show how much they know. I
Yeah.
like to listen because I know when my mouth's not moving, I can learn a lot more. Listening's a wonderful thing. And Matt, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, I hope this isn't putting you on the spot, but you being the master with this, and I know we're still always learning, but Matt, when you're doing an isometric and you're not doing it for a podcast, when you're doing it with your own training, what are you thinking about during the isometric? What are you mentally?
Brain goes blank. It's like sprinting when I was mountain bike racing. You can't think. If you're thinking, you're going slower. That's in bike racing, especially sprinting for a finish, they call it the noiseless rush. You don't
Mhm.
hear anything, you can't see anything, everything goes blurry, just because your mental cognition and resources is all on what it is. So usually what I'm doing is I'm just concentrating on creating tension throughout the chain that I'm utilizing. I want inclusion of as many muscles as possible. I want to make sure everything's working as a cohesive unit. I don't want to feel like, oh, it's all in my quads or it's all in my biceps or whatever. Even if I'm doing a bicep curl, I'm still thinking to myself, glutes, abs,
Of
lats,
course.
traps, everything is on. Everything is completely engaged. I don't want to isolate. I want to integrate. And so that's what I'm primarily thinking about is how well am I engaging and utilizing my muscles? Because that's
So,
almost always the limiting factor in being able to get bigger and stronger.
so once you reach that period where everything is engaged and functioning optimally, and you're holding it for a duration, there is complete blankness going on, or are you staring and locking on to maybe this pebble that's on the floor and just sort of staring at it?
Yeah, just eyes forward, eyes forward. One of the biggest misconceptions about, these devices that have a readout to them, Isomax and the bowl workers and stuff. One of the biggest misconceptions about using these things is that people will look at the readouts while they're doing the exercise, which is totally what you do not want to be doing.
Right, right.
You do not want to be doing that at all. Even if you, because a lot of times you can't do it. If I'm doing a French press, I can't see the screen behind me. But people are like, I can't see it. It's so hard. It's like, you do not look at the screen. In fact, when I did the videos for Dragon Door, many times Paul Wade made sure to say during this exercise, make sure to tell them, don't look at the screen. Whatever you do not look at it, because the screen is primarily there to give you feedback when you're not exercising. Instead, because if you're looking down when you're doing a bicep curl, you're all sorts of hunched up and your alignments are off. It's a nightmare. So you straight forward, just looking forward, pick a point on a wall maybe, or if you're doing something like a deadlift, pick a point in the floor in front of you, something of that nature. But yeah, you don't looking around, anything that's going to be distracted. That's why I don't even look at a clock anymore. I will set up automatic timers. So the Isomax has a timer built into it, which I love. I've got timing apps on my phone where I've got it set up to automatically beep and give me feedback. So I don't want to look at a clock. I don't want to look at a minute hand. I don't want to look at numbers. I don't want to stare at anything. I don't want my brain thinking about anything at all other than how well am I engaging and utilizing my muscles. That is the only thing I care about. That is the number one important thing. Everything else is distraction and going to compromise the exercise.
I believe that would cause a neural interruption that will de-emphasize what you're doing. And even if it's, a few percentage points, it's the movement to look at a clock and, who knows what goes on in the brain. I'm not a neurobiologist, but the neurosynaptic pathways may be altered.
Yeah.
But, another thing that you said too, it's just like today I was doing these bicep isometrics against the pins, and to change the tension, I semi squat down, increase the angle and then press up with the quads to make more of an eccentric. There's so many things you could do. Again, it's the time under tension will stimulate so many different ideas, and there are always ways to increase that overload where you can continue to progress. And the most beautiful thing in the world is the psychological benefit is amazing, because I walk out of that gym or after an isometric session, and you just feel so incredibly alive and good. The ease of movements of the body. I mean, there's a little bit of exhaustion too, but all those adhesions, and it's such an incredible feeling that besides just physical, there's such a mental component as well.
Oh, the relaxation alone too. We have tension and stiffness and just the way the body holds things over time. And when you engage in these isometrics, it links everything up and runs it through your body. And
Mhm.
afterwards, it's almost as if you had a massage. It's kind of loose and relaxed, and you feel really good because all that stress that was pooled up in your upper back, well, you just drove it down with some isometric deadlifts or something of that nature. So you balanced everything out so it was able to release all of that tension that was pooling in those tender areas.
And it, you know, and you use like there are wonderful massage therapists out there, but when you're under a lot of stress, since I mean, they could rub it out a little bit, you know, but that's a passive form of relaxing that muscles. When you actively engage it, it'll relax itself naturally after that. You know, whatever emotional or mental stress that you have can be so greatly reduced by that type of intense activity.
Oh, you're totally right. I have a habit actually when the football games are on. I get all anxious about what football games are like. Oh, the score is so close and everything. And I'll sometimes, if I'm just home alone or something, I'll start working isometrics to like get the anxious energy out a little bit.
Well, you know, being a New York Giant fan, I haven't had that stress because they haven't been very close lately. So but you know, with the Rangers and hockey, I'll tell you, I'm walking around the house and squeezing stuff and
Yeah.
pressing to try to release that as well. But it's there's no downside to it. It's such a
Yeah.
wonderful therapy, mentally, physically, psychologically, and
Hmm.
there's just so many there's so many things to talk about with this. It's when you're passionate about something.
Yeah. I wanted to reiterate a point that you made earlier that I think does not get talked about in the isometric circles that is really valuable that we don't do enough, which is you were talking about using isometrics with a sub-maximal contraction
Yes.
because I think it may be human nature. I don't know, but everybody that they get on an isometric and they're like, and like go 100% every single time. And yeah, that is a benefit of isometrics is you get to access that maximum strength real easy a lot of times, but you don't have to go to that level all the time. And there's certainly a lot of benefit to sub-maximal contraction with isometrics. And the fact that you make it a normal staple just adds more validity to it.
Matt, when you think like for all the beginners out there, and you know, even for I'm not seasoned, I'm still very much a student, but you know, I'm moving from kindergarten, I'm at the high school level. When you even at 30%, if you think about engaging the muscle that's supposed to be working, that's so important to have the mind sense what you're pushing and to really be able to neurally active even at 30%. And if you hold that for a minute, it gets very challenging.
Sure,
And
it
then
does.
and then as you get you feel it, there's a natural tendency to push a little harder into that. But when you don't, you know, so I really believe in the ramping up process. Even when I go all out, when I know it's going to be a 10-second blast with everything I got, I put the feet there, I gradually ease into it, and then I go. But it's ramping up into that. And,
Hmm.
but it, you know, so it really, I think it's a great sensory, it's necessary to acquire that sensory of what you're working. This way,
Hmm.
you're not cheating. And I mean, anything done with horrible form, even if you're pressing, you'll still get a benefit. But why not maximize it? You know, think
Yeah.
about what you're supposed to be doing
Yeah.
and
I
feel it.
love it. It's like you're, dear listener, if you're thinking of isometrics or if you've done it, this is us giving you permission. You don't have to go all out all the time. You
Amen.
can ease into it, okay? Because yes, you get to access maximum tension really quick and easy. Awesome, great, it's there. But for a lot of people, beginners to strength, people who sometimes I don't know about you, Richard, but I'm running into this more and more these days, where I'm running into individuals who are concerned, or who have an emotional reaction to stressing their body, thinking they're going to injure themselves. Where someone will literally, they'll be doing something really light and stuff, and someone I've worked for years even, and I'll be like, keep going, you got another. And he's like, I had to stop. I really feel like I'm going to hurt myself. It's like, what is giving you that feedback? And it's just these individuals, they've not gotten comfortable with pushing themselves to that level.
Mhm.
They don't know how to be comfortable with that discomfort. So a lot of times they won't even try. But giving us permission, I can push, but I don't have to go to max. You're in control with isometrics. That's the great
Absolutely.
thing. You don't have a
Absolutely.
weight pressing down on you saying you've got to work this hard. You get to be working as hard as you want, and it's always self-regulating by the second.
I think you probably have to go out of your way to injure yourself. You know, you
Mhm.
have to really have some super fanatic drive to, and and I think you probably, the muscles are going to give out before you're able to injure yourself. But you know, Matt, some people are different. You can only give them what they're willing to take. You know, and doing what you're doing, it's more than they would have done otherwise. You know,
Yeah.
so they are getting some benefit. But another benefit with the less than all out isometrics, I do some isomet where I hold for 3 minutes, you know, and it's an endurance thing. I'm not pushing with everything. But then after like 90 seconds, you don't have to push with everything because it sort of takes everything to keep going. So you reach a level of fatigue and you have to adapt to that fatigue to keep pressing that bar into the pins. And then, you know, that 45-pound bar feels like it's starting to come down on you.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's just a different way to do it. Maybe with endurance, cutting, you know, creating a hypoxic situation. I don't know what you feel about blood flow restriction or metabolic adaptations, but I think that does provide a benefit as well.
Yeah.
And and I really look forward to those. It's sort of going into this meditative sort of, when I'm going all out, that's not meditating. That's fiercely pushing into something. But that 3 minute meditation one is,
Mhm.
I look forward to that as well. I
All
like
right, I'm
just,
going to try that. Because I'm usually at the most 20, 30 seconds for most of my stuff.
mhm.
But then again, I'm kind of going as hard as I can. So
Yes.
I give that a try, see what that's like.
And you know, and another one is going into the bottom of a push-up position and just holding yourself a couple of inches off the ground for time. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to get over 3 minutes yet. That
Oof.
seems to be the point
Yeah.
where, if someone was holding a gun to me, I couldn't go in. The floor comes up and hits you in the chin. You know, it is so amazing to have that complete muscular failure where you can't hold your
Mhm.
body up any longer.
Yeah.
But you know, at about the minute 45, 2 minute mark, it really, you got to really want it, you know.
Yeah,
So,
you do.
and it's just another way to challenge yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's one of the great things about the isometrics is that it will never over challenge you, but it also won't under challenge you either. It will always meet you exactly where you are with whatever you can bring to the table.
Yes, exactly. And like I said, you never get used to it. And it's, I trained very hard and heavy today after this conversation. I think I want to go do it again. I'm so fired up
you're,
with.
you're inspiring me to do some stuff. I was doing pull-ups earlier. I'm like, I want to work my back now. I'm gonna go hit it
and,
again.
and you know, just like when I'm out walking around with the kids, and I think we mentioned this last time, but whenever I pass like some bars, or I'm always pulling or pushing on something.
Mhm.
And you know, another thing I like to do is just like to hold a fence or a bar, you know, or pulling with one and pushing with the other, these twisting type isometrics, where
Yep.
these unusual position isometrics, sort of to supplement and fill in the main standard customary movement patterns.
Yeah, yeah. And that's great about it too, is you can get all sorts of different angles and positions and postures. You can do even things that are sports specific. Like I'll put a strap around my foot and attach it to the base of like a squat rack or something. I'll just hold a side kick in my taekwondo, and I'm doing an isometric, and I'm just working the muscles I would do isometrically with exactly the exercise of a side kick. So my body position's exactly the same, my stability is the same, everything's exactly the same of what I do a side kick. It's not I'm doing these lunges, I hope it has carryover to a side kick. I'm
Mhm.
literally doing an isometric side kick.
If you were to take that strap off after doing and shoot a few side kicks out there,
Oh yeah,
uh, it must feel incredible, with
sure.
complete hip looseness. There's
Hmm.
spring. There's and like I mentioned before, with my experience, nothing activates a muscle like the isometrics, pre-dynamic. Uh,
Yeah,
Nothing has been better, not even close.
because it requires everything to be in alignment too. You could be squatting and you're not using your hips properly or whatever, but isometrics always requires things to be working the way they're supposed to work.
Yes.
You, unless you've got really, really bad form with something in your body's way out of alignment, you have to have the muscles working the way they're supposed to work in order to do it. It will not let you, quote, cheat the movement.
I would bet if some weightlifters, if they really analyze their movements, they'd probably realize they're using one limb a little bit more than the other.
Hmm.
That there's not a symmetry with like a both legs squatting or both arms when you're doing an overhead shoulder press. And
Yep.
isometrics really highlights that. When you're pressing, you can go, wow, I'm pushing more with the left. And again, that's the body's feedback,
Yep.
because it's very quiet when you're doing your isometrics. There's no plates rattling around. There's no
Mhm.
oscillations at all. You are eased into that tension and pressing, and then you get nothing but your body's sensory feedback coming to you.
Yep. Yep. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Richard, where can we find more of your escapades and things in the competition world and any of your training experience? Where we've got links down below, dear listener, for everything, but just audibly, like, where can we find you?
I do. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I
Yep.
don't really have any major pages with a bunch of followers, but I do like to post things periodically. And I love to do a couple of competition pictures. And also when I discover something, and if you go to my Instagram page, you'll notice that I have in one of the posts or a couple of them that I have your book, which I recommend to many of the patients.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, by the way. So, all links and resources, dear listener, are down below in the description, whether you're watching here on YouTube or listening in your podcast directory or just even here on the RDP blog. Everything you need to get started with this stuff and find more about Richard's amazing journey as he continues along it is down below. Richard, we got just a few more minutes left. Parting words of wisdom. What's one thing that you want to let everybody know out there that you want to leave us with?
Well, I think we covered, but I believe that practicing isometrics, this is a tool and a key to enhancing the quality of your life, your conditioning. It's just an amazing tool for longevity. Exercise, muscle medicine is an integral part as we get older. You have to keep moving. You have to keep that body dynamically strong. And isometrics allows you to do that in a very safe and effective and time efficient manner. So for you guys starting, Start slow, ease into it with feeling your body work. You don't have to spend more than 10 or 12 minutes. You could do it 3, 5 times a week. You're going to love it. You're going to want to do it every day because it just feels too good. And, you know, do your research, look, see what other people are saying. But most importantly, listen to your own body. It's the only body you're ever going to have. No one knows your body, whether it's a doctor, a scientist. No one will ever know your body like you know it. Listen to it. The feedback you get is irreplaceable and it's golden.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Richard. As always, it's an inspiration to watch you win and watch you train. And I thank you so much for coming on and talking with me again this time. It's always a good time.
Matt, and I have to say, I'm so grateful to you. I say that all the time. It's sincere. You've opened up a whole new world for me. I thank you, and I would be honored to do this again sometime in the future.
Great. Thanks, Richard. So again, folks, resources down below. Check it out. And this is Matt and Richard signing off, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Till then, be fit and live free.